Hey everyone, welcome back to today's Explainer. We've got an absolute powerhouse of an update for you today, diving straight into the critical UPSC insights from July 2nd, 2026. We are looking at 4 major policy and macroeconomic shifts that are actively rewriting India's trajectory and the global landscape as we speak. If you're serious about tracking national policy, you really need to understand the mechanics behind today's headlines.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Our briefing today is built on 4 distinct pillars. First, the brand new VB Graham's G welfare shift. Second, the economy and the truth behind our GST reliance. Third, energy and India's new coal gasification strategy. And finally, tech, with a pretty stark AI warning straight from the UN. Let's get to it.
All right, pillar number 1, welfare, and specifically the massive VBGRAMG shift.
So, as of July 1st, we saw the official rollout of the Viksit Bharat Guarantee for Rozgar and Ajivika mission, or simply VB Graham G. This is a total overhaul of the long-standing MGNREGA system. To really grasp the gravity of this, you got to look at the fiscal plumbing. MGNREGA was a demand-driven model, right? You demand work, you get it, and the center picks up the primary financial burden. Well, VB Graham G completely flips the script. Now the union government is going to set a normative allocation, basically a fixed budget based on specific objective parameters. If demand goes over that allocation, the responsibility for that extra expenditure lands squarely on the states. For those of you studying fiscal federalism, this is without a doubt a defining moment.
And alongside that structural pivot, the center just laid down a new baseline. Under the new VB Graham G Act, the absolute floor wage is now locked in at exactly 300 rupees per day. That is the newly established minimum standard across the board.
So, what does this actually mean on the ground? Well, the crucial point is the fiscal heat this puts on the states. Projections are showing that states' expenditure could literally balloon 6-fold. We're talking a massive leap from roughly 7,700 crore rupees all the way up to at least 51,000 crore rupees for 2026-27. Now, the center did throw in an interim allocation of just over 95,600 crore, but, there's a huge unresolved question hanging in the air. How much of that is going to get eaten up by settling past dues versus funding brand new allocations? It's going to be a really delicate high-wire balancing act for public finance this coming year. Moving on to Pillar 2, the economy, and a fascinating look at GST's import reliance.
We just hit the 9-year anniversary of the goods and services tax. And yeah, June 2026 brought in a robust total collection of 1.95 lakh crore rupees. But when you peel back the layers, there's a massive divergence going on. Domestic transactions grew by about 6.5%, but revenue from imports, that skyrocketed by nearly 35%. And guys, this isn't some one-off glitch. This marks the 10th straight month where import revenue growth has completely outpaced domestic transaction growth. Now, for any UPSC aspirant analyzing industrial policy, this should immediately set off alarm bells. Strong GST numbers? Awesome for the exchequer. But leaning this heavily on imports for that revenue, it hints at a real structural gap in domestic production. As tax experts like Saurav Agrawal point out, rising import collections essentially mean we're importing the very raw materials and intermediate goods that we really should be manufacturing right here at home. The big strategic takeaway? Policymakers might need to seriously look at taking unutilized PLI, or production-linked incentive funds, and aggressively redirecting them to scale up high-value domestic manufacturing.
And hey, speaking of manufacturing hurdles, even 9 years later, the GST system is still battling some deep structural bugs. The classic example is the inverted duty structure. Imagine you're a manufacturer. This is a scenario where you actually pay a higher tax rate on the raw materials you buy than the tax rate applied to the final product you sell. It's totally backwards. You're paying more tax on your inputs than you collect on your sales, which leads to this absolute nightmare of complicated refund claims. Because, as we all know, nothing helps a business grow quite like having its capital trapped in government paperwork, right? If India seriously wants to turbocharge domestic manufacturing, fixing this specific tax bottleneck is critical.
All right, let's shift gears to Pillar 3, energy, and India's brand new coal gasification strategy. Those recent supply shocks in the Strait of Hormuz really drove home a hard truth. Diplomacy alone won't keep the lights on forever. We need true energy independence. And to get it, we're pivoting back to our most abundant resource, which is coal. But we're not just burning it. We are chemically transforming it into an economic pipeline. It's a clean 4-step process. Step 1 is coal gasification. Step 2 converts that into syngas. Step 3 refines it into a chemical called dimethyl ether, or DME. And here is the absolute game changer.
DME burns incredibly cleanly and is so chemically similar to LPG that we can directly blend up to 20% of it right into our existing gas cylinders. No need to change a single piece of distribution infrastructure.
To actually pull this off, the Union Cabinet just greenlit a staggering 37,500 crore rupee scheme to push surface coal and lignite gasification. The target they've set is huge: 100 million tons of gasified coal every single year by 2030. And to make sure private industries actually take the risk to build these massive plants, the government is extending coal linkage tenures to 30 years. That's the kind of long-term capital certainty that heavy industry absolutely demands.
The real-world impact of this policy is honestly staggering. Hitting that 20% DME blend could wipe out the need for 6.3 million tons of imported LPG every year. Do the math on that, and it saves India nearly 34,000 crore rupees in foreign exchange annually. It is a brilliant, textbook example of indigenous science meeting strategic policy to insulate the nation from global market shocks.
Finally, let's move to our fourth and final pillar: technology, and a very sobering AI warning from the UN.
So the United Nations just dropped a preliminary report on artificial intelligence, and let me tell you, the tone is decidedly urgent. Secretary General Antonio Guterres posed a stark question that every single policymaker has to face right now. The world cannot govern what it cannot understand. I want to pose that exact same question to you. As future administrators and leaders, how on earth do you regulate a technology that is mutating and evolving faster than the scientific community can even study it?
The core dilemma the UN panel laid out is pretty terrifying when you break it down. AI capabilities are drastically outpacing our scientific understanding, which literally means scientists cannot guarantee that these systems won't cause catastrophic harm. We aren't just talking about fancy chatbots anymore. We are rapidly entering the era of agentic AI, systems that autonomously go out and execute complex, real-world tasks. And right now, the only speed bumps actually slowing down this explosive growth aren't laws or regulations. They are just physical constraints, like massive energy demands and a shortage of fresh data.
Well, we've definitely covered a lot of ground today. We broke down the VB G overhaul that is rewriting fiscal federalism, the underlying manufacturing warnings hidden within our record GST revenues, the 37,500 crore rupee push to turn coal into our energy shield, and the UN's urgent plea to understand AI before it governs us. So I want to leave you with this final thought. From restructuring rural welfare, to securing our power grids, to facing down autonomous AI, which of these four pillars do you believe will most dramatically disrupt India's trajectory as we move through 2026? Keep analyzing these trends, keep making those connections for your UPSC prep, and I will catch you in the next explainer.